If you're like most content creators, you'll probably have tons of ideas. Being creative is easy, but when it's time to sit down and turn ideas into content, that's when it gets hard. When I was starting out, my idea to content process was crazy inefficient. I had lots of paper notes with ideas pretty much everywhere and half-finished scripts sitting on my desktop. The moment it was time to turn these ideas into actual videos though, I would always start with a blank page. You probably know what I'm talking about. Being a systems and workflow guy, it was obvious that I need a better process. So I came up with a simple system that lets me turn any idea into content super fast. And there are 3 steps to it: capture, validate, and prioritize. I capture ideas before I forget them. I validate if there is a real problem behind each one of them, and I prioritize the idea before I produce anything. That way, I always have something ready to turn into content, and I don't need to start with a blank page anymore. If you're looking for a better way to go from idea to content fast, the 3-step system will help you do just that. Alright, let's get straight to the point. If the goal is to publish content consistently, it's a really bad idea to start with a blank page every single time. It's too chaotic and too inefficient. I usually had to sort through notes, apps, or check browser bookmarks to collect my ideas first. And sometimes I only had a term like content strategy written on a little paper note. That's not a good starting point, especially if you have a bad day and don't feel like figuring out what to say about, content strategy. Going with a more systematic approach makes total sense in my opinion. I hope you see it the same way, because it takes a lot of guessing out of the equation, and that's critical if you want to run a content business. The first step is to capture ideas more efficiently. Now, for me, that means having one source of truth for all ideas, and the tool doesn't matter so much here. It could be Notion, a spreadsheet, or any other app that works for you. The important point is that every idea is collected in the same space. At this stage, I don't try to write the perfect title, I don't create outlines, I don't design the thumbnail even. I simply record enough information so that 3 weeks later, I actually remember what I meant with content strategy. Basic information I note down are the raw idea, where it came from, who it might help, and what problem it could solve. For example, content switching is making content production exhausting. Now that's the raw idea. I add that it came from my personal experience, that it could help solo content creators like you, and that the underlying problem is the amount of energy lost moving between writing, recording, editing, and publishing. Another idea could be creators publish one long-form video, but don't reuse the content efficiently. Again, not a complete video just yet, but it could become something about content repurposing on multiple platforms later. Not every idea needs to be fully fleshed out like that, of course. And those are ideal examples anyway. This first step of the system is not designed to produce perfect ideas. It's designed to stop me and you from forgetting ideas in the first place. The rule is simple: capture now, evaluate later. In practical terms, this means creating a single platform or a spreadsheet to capture all ideas. So there's some initial setup involved, of course, but the upfront investment is worth it if you look at the potential time saving with every new piece of content going forward. Even if you write video scripts completely with AI, by the way, it makes sense to start from a simple idea hub. Feeding content strategy into Claude or vidIQ won't work well without any kind of context. Now, a backlog full of ideas is not enough for consistent publishing, obviously. That's why there's step 2 of the system, validation. It's where I take a rough idea and try to understand whether there is a real problem. Who specifically has this problem is a really good question to ask. Business owners is too broad. Creators is too broad. A more useful description might be solo YouTubers who are publishing consistently but spend way too much time deciding what to create next. That description gives my idea a situation, a target audience, and even a point of friction. What happens if nothing changes? Now, asking that helps me understand the cost of the problem. You know, sometimes the cost is just inconvenience, but it could also be missing publishing schedules, losing momentum, or complete burnout. Now, the third question is, can I explain the solution practically? So, not just making an opinion video about it, but actually come up with a framework that works in real life. Now, I have lots of opinion about productivity, but can I explain what the process looks like step by step? Can I provide a checklist or a framework? If I can't, the idea needs more juice before it becomes a video. And then there's always, does this idea support the channel promise? My focus is on helping solo content creators publish consistently without burning out by sharing practical systems and workflows. An idea about the history of social media sounds interesting, but it doesn't clearly support that channel promise. An idea about content systems that lowers decision fatigue, however, if we want to be really technical here, fits much better. So, based on these questions, the initial idea changes. I need to post more consistently now turns into solo creators lose consistency because they decide what to create at the very last minute. Why does last minute decision making create inconsistency? Well, what information should have been captured earlier, and what kind of system would remove that decision? Those questions create a curiosity gap. Supposedly. I mean, you tell me in the comments if this tickles you or if you rather start with a blank page. Anyhow, that's the structure I want this video to follow. Start with a recognizable problem, create curiosity, and then reveal a practical solution. Which brings me to step 3 of the content idea system, prioritizing what to do with the idea. Capturing and validating is not enough at this point, because there are many ideas. I need to choose somehow which one to turn into a script or a post. Without prioritizing, I easily end up with 10 good ideas and still have no clear decision on what to work on today. So for prioritizing, I go with 2 options usually. 1, have AI rate ideas for me. That's the lazy way. And 2, go with what makes sense to me considering the bigger picture of the channel. You know, pulling a topic to the top of the list makes sense sometimes. This video here, for instance, was based on a recent experience I had with a client, and I thought, well, it fits well enough within the current topic flow of the channel, so why not put it in the content schedule now? When I hand over my topics to AI though, to rate them, I make sure to include a few things into the prompt, like rate these ideas for frustration level, relevance to the channel, and audience, or sometimes even demand. Although demand is not necessarily something I want to prioritize a lot. Simply because I'm building business assets here with my content and I do not want to constantly please the algorithm. I admit that sometimes I even ask AI to rate ideas based on how easy they are to produce. Some frameworks can be super complex, especially when it comes to graphics and animations. I don't always have the time or the energy to spend on that, so I might pull ideas forward that are simpler to edit once they're recorded. Technically speaking, you can turn this step into absolute rocket science by scoring different categories and pulling data from current videos of other creators, let's say. I believe vidIQ does that to some degree. At the stage where I'm at with my channel, I haven't felt the need to go down that rabbit hole, really. But for the sake of having different options, I want to mention it here. For me, the purpose of the prioritizing step is not to turn content decisions into yet another spreadsheet, right? I want to reduce the number of decisions I have to make while I'm trying to create. Take the guessing out of the equation as much as possible. Capture, validate, prioritize. I think we can agree that the 3 steps are simple enough to execute. The order is important, of course. Capture has to come first because ideas can't be evaluated or prioritized if they're not written down anywhere. Validation has to come second naturally because a raw idea is not necessarily the same as a useful idea. And prioritizing has to come last because even a useful idea may not be the right idea to produce next. This order takes one critical question off the table. If you think about it, what should I create today? I hate that one. With the idea system, it's what ideas are there, which of these ideas are real problems, and which problem deserves attention next. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a small change that reduces a lot of creative friction most content creators have if they only ask, what should I create today? The bottom line is, if you want to publish consistently without burning out, you can't treat every piece of content in isolation. With the 3-step system, I can turn any idea into content and completely avoid starting with a blank page, by the way. If you've watched this video so far, you could say, oh, well, that sounds like a lot of work though for just one piece of content. And I agree with you. If we do capture, validate, prioritize for just one post or one video, and that's a lot of time investment for something that might get 25 views. Then again, we can argue that if we invest time and energy in a system like that, it should produce more than a single piece of content. And that's exactly what we can do if we add another workflow to this 3-step idea system. We can use the idea, the questions, the research as foundation for content creation on multiple platforms. It's the video turned into a reel, the short turned into a LinkedIn post, and so on. Multi-platform posting of the same content idea in slightly different variations, because each platform demands a different format. The message can be the same, the output looks different though. So the next logical step to publish consistently is to take the one idea we just captured, validated and prioritized, and then use it in a one-to-many system next. That's what we're going to talk about in the next video. Repurposing content on multiple platforms without adding extra workload and time to the whole process. Thanks for watching today, and I see you in the next one.